today's subject matter is intricacies in form and declarations under the CST Act. Today's chairman is none other than Sri Advocate C.B. Thakur, and paper writer is Sri Anil Vakharia from Pune. Pune is always known as in Marathi Vidya se Mahir Ghar, and I also expect that Anil Bhai will definitely give a lot of food on this subject. Now I request Mr. Amar Shirode, Praveen Shinde, to give introduction of paper writer. friends, we'll proceed further, and I hand over the charge of this session to the chairman, Sri CB sir.
Thank you, Vijay bhai. Friends, we are in this technical session. We are to discuss about intricacies in various declaration forms under CST Act. This is, I think, specifically chosen subject because today we find that number of objections are raised by the authorities that this form is not valid, this is not applicable, or defects, or even in the root of the matter whether this form can be given or not, etc. So from that point of view, whatever law has developed till today, I think that is a good compilation. And when Anil bhai sent me this paper to go through as a chairman, I just feel that I am appearing before an issue-based officer. इतना कड़क लिखा है. Everything is to be disallowed. Not only an issue-based officer, अगर मराठी में बोलते तो खरडूस ऑफिसर के सामने अपन जैसे जाते हैं ना, ऐसा पेपर लिखा है. But I think the best effort, because we are going minutely in the subject, and the deeper we go, at least we are more competent to advise our clients what precautions we should take. So friends, from the depth of the paper itself, you will come to know that various issues have been raised by the paper writer, and really very highly debatable issues are there. But I will not take more time because he has got about 45 minutes, out of that some time has gone. So he can complete up to by 11:30 he will complete, and then we will have group discussion. I have already posers have been raised. They will hand it over to the respective group leader after his, or if you want, group leader can come and take it in advance also, just to have look at it when he is talking about the paper. Then group 3. Amol. Gelani. नहीं sorry. Part. And Rao. VV Rao. Mr. Rao. Come.
President of the STBM, Pankaj Parekh, Chairman of this technical session, Sri CB Thakur, seniors in the profession, and fellow delegates. This pleasant task has been given to me to present the paper on the intricacies in various declaration forms under CST Act, and as the chairman has advised me to complete my paper within the short span of 40 minutes, I'll run a little bit fast so that I can cover the complicated issues which I have posed later on. Earlier in the beginning, there are simple issues. As we all know that the declaration forms are prescribed, various declaration forms under CST Act for interstate purchases at concessional rate or for claiming exemption from payment of CST. Similarly, there are some forms like Form F for branch transfer or consignment transfer, E1 and E2 forms for sale in transit. We all also know the legal provisions under which section these forms are particularly required. They are prescribed under the rules, and therefore I would be directly going into the details about the intricacies or issues related to these forms. Now friends, if you read section 8 of the CST Act, which deals with the rate of tax on interstate sales. Now, section 8 subsection 1, it begins with every dealer who in the course of interstate trade. Now, so that means for the seller, they have not mentioned that the seller is required to be registered under CST Act. If you go further, they say that who in the course of interstate trade or commerce sells to a registered dealer goods of the description. So that means the purchasing dealer needs to be registered under the CST Act, but whether the selling dealer is required to be registered under CST Act, from this issue itself I am going to start with, and accordingly if you read further subsections, that is subsection 3 and subsection 4, which are already reproduced in my paper on page number 29. So I would not go into further details that for which goods the C-forms are to be required to be issued, and whether that C-form is to be signed by the purchasing dealer, it has to be a complete form. All these things have been mentioned in subsection 3 and 4 of the section 8 of CST Act. Now, what are the basic requirements for an interstate sale against C-form that I have narrated in short? That there has to be a movement of goods from one state to another. Then the purchasing dealer should be registered under the CST Act in his state, that is in the state where he is receiving the goods, or he may be registered in some other state also. Then the rate of tax shall be 2%, which has been reduced against C-form for interstate sales. Then goods should be specified in the CST registration certificate. Now again, this is an important aspect which is required to be seen. There again further I have cited certain decisions wherein they say that a broad category of goods will also suffice the cost. Then the goods must be purchased for resale or for use in manufacture or processing of goods for sale, or in telecommunication network, or in mining, in generation or distribution of electricity of goods, or they are containers or packing material. So these are the requirements as per section 8, subsection 1, 3 and 4. Then the purchasing dealer should issue a declaration in form C, which is duly filled and signed by him. This is very important, that the form should be duly filled and signed. The selling dealer furnishes the declaration to his prescribed authority within prescribed time or within such further time that the authority may permit. Now let us go through the various intricacies. First of all, whether movement of goods is required from one state to another. कुठल्याही interstate sale साठी पहिल्यांदा there has to be a movement of goods from one state to another. Without movement of goods, you cannot say that it is an interstate sale, and therefore C-form will not come into picture. So there has to be an interstate movement of goods from one state to another, which is supported by LR, RR or any other document. And now here, if the selling dealer does not hold the CST registration in the state where the movement of goods has started, that is situs of sale, then whether he can accept the C-form issued by the customer. Now for example, as I told you that section 8(1) starts with any dealer and not with any registered dealer. So the seller can be registered in some other state, or he can be an unregistered dealer also. In my opinion, even an unregistered dealer can accept C-form, or if registered in other state, can accept C-form. Now, for the purchasing dealer, he needs to be registered, because without having registration certificate, he cannot issue the C-form. Now, here I have posed one question, whether C-form is essential if the local rate of tax is less than 2% as prescribed under section 8(1). If the local rate as per the schedule itself is less than 2%, then whether C-form is essential. Though the question is very simple, I leave it on the audience to answer this question. Now, whether a purchasing dealer can issue the C form for purchase of tax-free goods. Yes, the purchasing dealer can issue the C form because the goods may be taxable in the state of the seller. So if the goods are taxable in the state of the seller, though the buying dealer in his state the goods are tax-free, he has to issue the C form for the purchasing such goods. Secondly, even such dealer, if he is required to make a subsequent sale, that is subsequent interstate sale under section 3B, then he will require even form, and therefore now even if in the selling state, if the goods are tax-free, the seller can accept the C form and issue even form, though C form is not required for him because the goods are tax-free in his state from where he is selling the goods. But since the buyer requires the even form, he will issue the even form as per the requirement of the buyer and accept the C form if necessary. Now, whether the goods intended to be purchased are required to be specified in the registration certificate, I have already told you that yes, they are required to be specified in the registration certificate of the purchasing dealer. It is not required that there should be mentioned in the registration certificate of the selling dealer. Then there are few case laws, Subway Mining Limited, wherein earth moving equipments, they were not specifically mentioned in the registration certificate, but plant and machinery was mentioned in the certificate. So the state has allowed, Jharkhand state being 53 BST, they said that broad category of goods have already been mentioned, and therefore it is not necessary that specific goods, earth moving equipments must be required to be mentioned in RC. Similarly, the case of Vindhyavasini stone crushers, wherein loaders and dumpers were purchased. They were also engaged in the excavation activity as well as works contract. In their registration certificate also plant and machinery was already mentioned, but loaders and dumpers, they are also nothing but plant and machinery. Therefore, they were allowed to be purchased against Form C. Now, in the case of West Coast Industries versus State of Tamil Nadu, 57 BST 373, considering the bona fide impression that goods are already included, C form was allowed. Here, the dealer was dealing in hosiery goods, and he has purchased certain machinery or overhead tanks and all those things which are required for manufacturing of hosiery goods, under the belief that these goods are already covered under the in his registration certificate. Now, considering his bona fide belief, the courts have allowed those goods to be purchased against C form. Now, here one more question arises, that whether the dealer can purchase the goods first and then he can apply for amendment in registration certificate. Technically speaking, it is not allowed, but in Maharashtra, it is being accepted. The commissioner has already issued the instructions, and we get the registration certificate amended with retrospective effect even after we purchase the goods. Then we first purchase the goods and then get the registration certificate amended. New aspect. Now, if this promoter cum builder, if he has opted for a composition scheme of 1%, then in such case whether he can issue the C form. Now, here there can be various views, because if you read the notification wherein the composition scheme has been granted to the builders, it speaks of the condition number 4 of the notification speaks that the claimant dealer shall not transfer the property in goods procured from outside the state using the declaration in Form C under the CST Act 1956 in the contract for which the composition for tax payment is opted. So in short, the promoter cum builder who has opted for composition scheme, according to this condition number 4 of the notification, he cannot issue C form. But if such promoter cum builder, if he issues the C form and purchases the goods against the C form which are used in the construction of building, and he has already opted for composition scheme, then what would be the scenario? What are the consequences if the builder has opted for composition scheme? The element required for issue of C form, that the goods must be mentioned in the registration certificate, there has to be transfer of property in goods to the third party, and such transfer should be by virtue of sale. All these three conditions are satisfied. So, according to the CST Act, he can issue C form. But because of the condition number 4 of the notification, he is not allowed to issue the C. And as I told you, if he has already issued the C form and purchased the goods, then whether penalty under section 10D will be applicable, or whether the composition scheme totally will be disallowed in his case, or it will be disallowed to the extent of the purchases effected from outside Maharashtra. This is the question which I have posed in my paper, and I leave it up to the chairman and the various group leaders to answer this question, because there are three aspects of this question. Then next question is, if a dealer receives excess amount of C form or a dealer issues the C form for the excess amount, for example, he does not consider the debit credit notes or goods return. Here we find that a lot of officers, they say, "Arey, aapne zyada C form issue kar diya, considering it purchases, add GP and we will estimate your sales." Or, aapko zyada C form receive aaya hai, you have received more amount of C form, so we will consider it as your sales. This is not the correct view, friends. Here, dealers, though they are receiving notices on this aspect, the assessing authorities are not taking the correct view, and just because the C form is issued for an excess amount or received for an excess amount, they cannot estimate it by way of sales and tax it in the hands of the dealer, because it is the duty of the department to prove that the dealer has actually effected the sale against those C forms. Therefore, in my view, no tax is payable on such excess amount of C form issued or received. Now, if the C form is not produced before the assessing authority, then in the revision also the dealers are permitted to produce the C form before the revisional authority. This has been held in Sharda Engineers and Contractors versus State of Madhya Pradesh. Then revision on the basis of forms which are not genuine was set aside. Now the dealer has sold the goods against C form. He has already received the C forms which has been allowed by the assessing authority. But in revision it was found that the C forms are not genuine. In such a case, basically the revision itself was set aside. Even a view has been taken that once the C forms are received, then the seller could not be held liable to pay tax or penalty because the form is not genuine, because seller does not know unless he is in collusion with the purchaser. The seller cannot be taxed because the form is not genuine. Now, if the selling dealer receives the C form which is later on found not genuine, again the same case in the case of Sasta Enterprises versus Appellate Authority, concessional rate of tax was granted on the basis of C form and even forms received, which were found not genuine at a later stage. On revision also there are many more cases like Milk Food Limited versus Commissioner VAT Punjab and Haryana 59 BST 1, wherein declaration forms received, assessing authorities were doubtful about the genuineness of the forms and whether the buying dealer has complied with the conditions for which the C form is issued. Now the seller cannot go beyond the form to see whether the purchasing dealer has complied with the conditions of the forms or not, and therefore the burden of proof is not on the selling dealer but it is on the purchasing dealer. To show that declaration submitted by purchasing dealer, whether it is genuine or not, that is not the duty of the seller. Similarly, whether the purchaser complies with the conditions or not, the burden of proof cannot be shifted to the selling dealer from the purchasing dealer. This is what has been held in all these various cases. Similarly, penalty is leviable on dealer who knows or has reason to believe declaration to be false. In short, if the purchaser and seller they are in collusion, then only the seller can be held as liable. The next issue is whether C form can be disallowed if the purchaser registration certificate is cancelled. Now, if the seller is unknown about it, that the purchaser's registration certificate is already cancelled, if he does not have the knowledge of cancellation of RC of purchaser, then C form cannot be disallowed in the hands of seller. For this purpose, you can refer the case of Bell Ceramics Limited. This case I have not covered in my paper. I have just added it today morning. Bell Ceramics Limited versus Deputy Commissioner of Commercial Taxes, 38 BST 388. Similarly, I have also referred the case of MRF Limited, 29 BST 566, wherein AF form was disallowed, which was issued by the Zilla Parishad. There also the courts have held that it is not for the selling dealer to go beyond the declaration issued in form AF by the Zilla Parishad, and the duty cannot be cast on the seller to pay the tax. With this, friends, I complete the issues related or intricacies related to the C form, and I move on to the issues related to form F. Now, in form F, basically form F, it is required to be issued by a branch or an agent who receives the goods from the head office or the other branch, and under section 6A, this form has been prescribed, wherein the receiver of the goods has to issue these forms. Now here, friends, the onus to prove that a transaction is sales liable to be taxed is always on the department. But however, section 6A reverses this position and it puts the onus on the dealer that the goods have moved from one state to another, not by virtue of sale, but by way of branch transfer. And to prove that the movement of goods from one state to another is otherwise than by a result of sale, the onus has been shifted from the department to the dealer. For this purpose, you can refer the cases of Venison Traders versus Union of India 95 STC 273 and Chandraban Jugal Kishore 126 STC 258. Now for this purpose, I have jotted down certain guidelines which will help us to prove the claim of stock transfer or branch transfer. And these guidelines are like the goods, they should move in bulk quantity as in 12 BST 210. expensed out in profit and loss account or gift articles or free goods. Such goods, F form is not required. I am of the same view.
Anil Vakharia, the issues he has raised, out of only he could finish some of them in elaboration, otherwise we have to read it from his paper. But I think he deserves a very big, loud applause for giving such a good. Then that sometimes happens. But Pradeep says that in spite of he was having some ill health before completing the paper, still he has worked upon that.